ghosts in the hallway whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop, unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories are talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the group. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries, 5 great guests. Super chat, it's a wild member ride. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, monsters, and welcome to this week's episode of Monsters on the Edge here on the Untold Radio Network. I am your host, Barnaby Jones from Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. We have an awesome guest with us today. Joining us again, he was on the show on the Paranormal Spectrum on Thursday, and he's come back to talk all things monsters, cryptids, Bigfoot, Dogman, and more. So he'll be with us in just a second here. But first, if you're looking for the perfect holiday gift to show your support for all things we do here at Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, head on over to our website, wisconsincaps.com, and click on Shop Our Store. That'll take you to our TeePublic website, where you can find all kinds of t-shirts, hats, mugs, tote bags, magnets, stickers, tank tops, pillows, shorts, you name it, with all of our cool logos and graphics on there. You can wear it, you can sport it, and show all your friends how much you love Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, including our brand new holiday ugly sweater design featuring Bigfoot, the lake monsters, ghosts, aliens, and of course the Caps logo. And guys, if you have not checked out our brand new documentary, The Hairy Man of Dairyland, Wisconsin's Bigfoot, it is available now on our Patreon Plus account. Check it out.
Right here in the road, and it was right on the line, standing right there.
Whatever it was breaking trees, breaking branches, and I've never seen that before.
And from the basement door, I was like, Louie, I'm pretty sure there's a footprint out here.
And that's when the rocks started coming out of this tree line.
All I seen was hair. And it was like arched over right here.
And then out of nowhere we hear this loud, like earth-shaking grunt.
It rolled its shoulder and grabbed the ground and pulled itself towards my vehicle.
And I heard a plunk, and I come over here, and that squash was laying about right there in the middle of my garden, you know.
How do you walk in that in bare feet at 30-degree temperature?
Did you see that? What was that? I saw something dark in the light from the right to the left. It was big. Could be the little Bigfoot.
Our feature-length documentary is available now for purchase on our Patreon page. Again, that's patreon.com/Wisconsin Caps. Go check it out. If you guys want to meet us in person in just a couple days, we are going to be at the Milwaukee Krampus event Sunday, December 7th in the Brewery District of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is a huge downtown festival featuring live music, 2 vendor rooms, and a whole bunch more activities throughout the night, including a Krampus parade. Lots of fun. We'll be there. Come check it out. Then coming up next year, May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in Delavan, Wisconsin, we are going to be at the Contact Modalities Expo and, of course, Cryptids, Anomalies, and Paranormal Convention Saturday, May 9th in Fond du Lac. And if you really want some far out, we are going to be at the Belleville Public Library in October of next year. That's a long way away, but we will be there. All right, guys, with that being said, we are live today and we have a wonderful guest in the studio here. So if you have any questions or comments throughout the show, throw them in the comments section. We'll get to them as soon as possible. But now, ladies and gentlemen, here is our guest. My guest today is Randy Hutchings. He is the author of Bear Mountain Bigfoot. He is a dedicated paranormal and Bigfoot field investigator since the late 1990s, exploring the deep hollows and rugged forests of Tennessee's southern Cumberland Plateau in search of answers to some of the region's oldest mysteries. A lifelong outdoorsman, Hutchings combines his love for hiking, camping, and backcountry exploration with a passion for documenting the unexplained phenomenon and local folklore. His work bridges the gap between field investigation and storytelling, preserving eyewitness accounts and regional legends that keep the mystery of Bigfoot and other Appalachian enigmas alive for future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Randy Hutchings. Randy, welcome.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me again.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Well, your bio says that you are the author of the One Bigfoot book. But since we've talked on Thursday, you have some exciting news that your brand new book has come out over the weekend.
Yes.
Awesome. Tennessee Pygmy, Legend or Reality. Tell us all about that.
Okay. So the area that I live in specifically, Warren County, Tennessee, Warren County, White County, and Coffee counties, which are all kind of like right up at each other and kind of like a crescent along the plateau, have histories going back to the 1820s of them finding these little pygmy graveyards. And some of these, like in the 1920s, Turner Lane was the gentleman who first started describing these, and it kicked up such a huge fuss in Tennessee that the burgeoning antiquarian society of Tennessee took it on as this personal like right they were going to basically follow, and they sent that this stuff went so crazy that the Smithsonian got involved in the 1860s. It's wild, like how much this, if there's any cryptid that really is tied to Tennessee, especially the history of Tennessee, it's the Tennessee Pygmies.
Interesting. Well, so tell me more about them. When you say pygmy, what are we talking about?
When they started finding these graves, the graves were in these slate stone boxes. They were about 2 feet underground. The bodies were interred in a way that they were either sitting in the fetal position with their arms over their knees, or some of them were just sitting up, holding what they described as little ceramic pots. None of the bodies that were found were larger than 3 foot tall. And the part that really that astounded Turner Lane originally when he started finding these on his property back in White County back in the 1820s was that these bodies were being found with all of their wisdom teeth intact, where they'd come in. And the sutures on the top of their skull had grown in. There was no soft spot. So it gave all the showings of being an adult human, but in this little 3-foot tall, pygmy size. And like I said, this brought people from all over the nation into this region looking for these pygmy graves, and thousands of them were interred over about a 60-year time period between several counties, going throughout the Cumberland River system, partially going up into Kentucky. There was some that were found up there, but none of them. The thing that unites them all was that none of them were over 3 foot tall that were found.
Are there still sightings of these things like living today?
I've taken 7 sightings of little people, cryptid little people, and what's wild about them is they're not hairy. They describe them as being naked. At least all of the ones I've taken personally, except for one. There was one instance where they talked about them wearing what looked like how they describe it. Primitive clothing was how they described it. But in the other instances, the other 6 instances, they described them as being these small, naked, lean humans one guy even responded that it looked like a hobbit, the way he described it. But in every one of those instances, it was people driving by in cars that saw these things. One instance, it was not. I'll bring that up in a minute. But there was people driving by in cars, and these things seemingly were trying to cross the road, and they were waiting for the cars to go by before they crossed the road. In that one instance that I took that didn't involve a car, there was a lady, this is locally here in the Warren County that I live in. She was washing dishes at the back of her kitchen, at the back of her house. And she had moved in about 4 months prior to this. And there was one of those aluminum outbuildings like at the back part of her property. And it was all overgrown, so there was vines on it and all this. And she said that since they moved in, they hadn't messed with it. It was overgrown. They figured it was just full of rats, so they left it alone. And while she's washing her dishes, she said she watches the doors of this aluminum outbuilding crack and start to slide open. And she watches as this little, as she described it, 2.5 to 3 foot tall little man sneaks his way out, like with his back up against the wall, and sneaks along the side of this outbuilding all the way to the wood line, and says she watches him run off into the woods.
Did he close the door behind him?
He did not.
So it obviously didn't come back then either, did it?
It did not. It didn't appear to. No.
Interesting. So it wasn't like living in the outbuilding, just kind of hiding out there.
Maybe, yeah. But the Cherokee in this region have the legends of what's called the Unwitsundi, and the Unwitsundi were described as 3 foot tall humans that lived in. There was 3 clans of Unwitsundi. There was the Laurel clan that lived in laurel pockets. There was the Rock clan that lived in caves, and there was the Dogwood clan that lived in the forest, the open forests. And it was the Rock clan you didn't want to mess with. The Rock clan was pretty violent. You had a better. They actually talked about that you had a better chance of surviving an encounter with a Sasquatch than you did with a Unwitsundi from the Stone clan. They were pretty violent. But they described that the Unwitsundi lived in the caves of this region, or lived in the mountains. I'm sorry, of this region. And I always find it really interesting that all of those graves were found on the western edge of the Cherokee, what used to be the Cherokee territories back in the day, and it's in the exact same area where they had the legends of the Unwitsundi residing.
Well, this is interesting. Going back to talking about the graves, you said that they were actually in like coffins, right?
Little slate graves, yes, made out of slate rock.
Huh. And that's really interesting, because when we talk about like Bigfoot and stuff and why we haven't found a body, like if these things, not to compare completely like pygmies and Bigfoots and stuff, but we always wonder like, well, where are the bodies and stuff like that? Well, here are these other humanoid creatures that are burying their dead, right?
Yeah,
so they're actually, digging a hole, putting these bodies in there in looks like kind of ceremonial fashion, where they're burying them with pottery or other stuff, like you said. So why do we not believe that Bigfoot couldn't be doing the same thing?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, and the fact that they did find pottery, I bring up I've got a whole chapter in my book about that, the significance of the pottery, because you have to have society to be able to craft pottery. You have to have some sort of civilization that is capable of mastering fire and earthworks,
Yeah.
and all kinds of stuff just to be able to make those little pots. So I think those pots are one of the most significant things about that story that they just kind of gloss over and don't really talk about. They also talked about in those pots were found seashells, which I found again significant because we're landlocked in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So where were these seashells coming from? Was this signifying trade, amongst the tribes in this region with these little people? So
yeah, and that's if they're not the ones making the pottery or these things, then they're obviously trading or getting them from the native tribes and stuff in there that are have
yes.
this. And it shows that they're considering these things worthy of being buried with the people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
And the Cherokee talked about that the Inuit-Sunday were responsible for a lot of healing medicines that the Cherokee elders knew about, because it would a lot of the way the ritual of it was when you knew that there was an area where these little people lived, these Inuit-Sunday, you would go out there and you would give a gift of tobacco, and in return they would gift you the plants that you were needing for your illness. And so there's the Cherokee legends along with the archaeology associated with these little graves shows that there had to be some kind of complex society going on, in this region.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. Sometimes we hear of like the gifting and stuff with Bigfoot as well, of putting stuff out there and getting stuff in return as far as like what you need, like the medicine and stuff. In the documentary that we put out for the Hairy Man of Dairyland, one of our researchers in there he was doing a gifting site, and he got into a car crash and he was severely burned.
Oh,
and
wow.
He couldn't go back to this gifting site for quite a while. And when he did, he was gifted burdock, which is this like
healing
herb for severe burns.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's kind of really interesting. Like maybe we're not necessarily dealing with these Bigfoot. Maybe we're still dealing with these pygmy in certain areas.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Then there's also when I started researching into the legends, the local legends of the pygmies, I come up with the Inuit-Sunday, but the Creek, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, everybody in this region has their own names for these things. And then I started noticing that all tribes across the entire United States has names for their own little people for their regions, and there are similar stories attributed to their little people that sound like the same kind of stories that go with the Inuit-Sunday. So I think this phenomenon is a lot more expansive than we really let on that it is.
Well, it sounds like, like the Puckwedgies out in New England and stuff. Very much
Massachusetts,
along yeah. And then you also have, and who knows if this is the same or not, but you have the whole Kentucky Goblin stories.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't know these things were out there and stuff, these are still diminutive creatures coming out of, possibly caves or mines. And you have the same kind of story of, the assaulting of the cabin and stuff like that. But I mean, are these things actually alien or goblins, or could they actually be these Puckwedgies or little pygmies?
Little pygmies, yeah. Maybe, yeah. Yeah, and then there's I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but there's Pedro the Mountain Mummy. I talk about him in the book, where back in I think it was the 1920s or the 1930s, he was found, where two cave explorers in Wyoming, I can't remember the name of the mountains, but these specific mountains up in the Wyoming, and the natives in that area have legends in those mountains of their own little people. And this little body in almost a yoga position was found mummified on a shelf in this cave. And they took the body and had it displayed to went out like, kind of like the the freak circuit back in the day with it, but they had it X-rayed, which was what was the important part. And the X-ray showed that the sutures in the skull had fused, and that it had wisdom teeth. And they said that that Pedro, if he was standing erect and not in the sitting position he was in, he would have only been 15 inches tall. So,
wow. Now you don't think these things are like what we consider midgets today?
I don't think they are. They based off the personal sightings that I had talked with the people, they all describe them. If you look at little people now, with and I'm not even going to try to say the acroplegia, is that what it is?
Something like that, yeah.
That's suffering from that. It's generally that they have a small body and they have normal size hands and a normal size head. The people that have seen these at least the cryptid little people that I've taken sightings of, they describe them as being proportionally small everywhere. And again, like that one guy brought up, he said like the hobbits in the movies. That's the way he put it. Was they look just like a normal person, just on a miniaturized scale down to 3 feet. And they all and all of the sightings that I've taken have described them as having long dark hair. So,
kind of like more native looking.
Yes, yeah. A couple of them actually describe them as being tan or bronze. So
I know we were talking before the show a little bit about Linda Godfrey, who wrote the books on the Beast of Bray Road and stuff here in Wisconsin. And in some of her books, she writes about these diminutive people, either some being like naked, as you said, or also being like dressed as Native Americans in like deerskin outfits, like carrying weapons and stuff. Like the one story that I remember is this guy like walking down like the bank of a river or something, and these two of them come around the corner either carrying bows or spears or something, but they just kind of interacted like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And then they just kind of,
everybody was just surprised.
Yeah, but they were like dressed in the primitive Native American clothing and stuff, and
yeah. Yeah, one of the sightings that I took was from a gentleman. It wasn't from local. It was from Fontana Lake in North Carolina, which is just below Klingman's Dome, that area of the Smokies. And he was fishing on Fontana Lake, on the western part of Fontana Lake, and he said there's several islands there. And he was off one of those islands, and he said he noticed movement up on the shore of this island, and he thought that it was raccoons or something. So he took out his binoculars, and he said, as he's looking through his binoculars, he said there are 3 to 4 of these little people. And he's the gentleman I told you that said that they were wearing primitive clothing. But he said that these 3 to 4 individuals were trying to, he said, look like they were trying to uproot a tree stump that was on the shore. Now, what in the world they're trying to uproot this tree stump for, I have no idea. But he said that it looked like one of them was giving orders, and one of them, the other 2 were trying to pull on this thing with sticks. But he said they were wearing primitive clothing. So
that's fascinating. I don't know. I was talking about again up at the Hayden Adventure, the property in Upper Michigan. We did a lot of Bigfoot research and stuff. And one thing we found on there was about a 2-inch long shoe print. And it had the distinct heel mark and then the toes and stuff like a boot, but it was very small, maybe about 2 inches long. And I got pictures of this and stuff, but it's smaller than a child.
Yeah.
But I don't know why, there was the only one we found, and it was just kind of like off the main road in this little embankment coming up this hill. And it was the weirdest thing. But
wow. That's wild. With the shoe print would creep me out. That's like leprechaun.
It had the, like how you have the indentation, like the fancier like boots or something where it's got the heel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The half round kind of half moon shape and squared off. And then the rest of the boot looked like a boot print just in the ground, but with the treads and everything.
Yeah.
But only about 2 inches long.
That's wild.
Yeah,
I've seen a 3.5 inch print once, but it was in our primary research area. So I assumed and it was an assumption, but I assumed it was a juvenile Bigfoot or a little small Bigfoot. But that's the smallest print I've ever seen was that 3.5-inch breed. But that wasn't wearing a shoe. A shoe would freak me out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be wild.
We thought, like, well, sometimes he has his granddaughter or niece or whatever out there, but this is way too small for even a child.
Oh yeah.
And where it was, why would this kid be, like, it wasn't like you can get out of your car and walk around, but this was on like the driveway going in. Like there's no reason for a person to be out in that area, especially a child or something walking around.
Yeah.
So really weird stuff.
That is wild.
The world is a much weirder place than we give
it. It is. And people just have no idea, I don't think.
When you really get out there and start looking at this stuff, there's like, I think it was last week we were talking about how all this stuff, like the stories that people talk about, when you do research in that, like the people that come out are reluctant to tell their Bigfoot stories or any of this stuff. Yeah. And so they go online and they research it and they go, okay, well, Bigfoot does howls. That's what I heard. Yeah. Okay. And they, hide behind trees. They throw stones. Okay. This is all common stuff. And so when they tell their story, they feel like, okay, I can share this, but there's so much other stuff that, maybe happened to them that they're like, no, that's just too weird to talk about.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And you really got to pry into them to get these other stuff like the orbs of light and, the hearing things and just the bizarre stuff that goes along with Bigfooting, like the car door slams out in the middle of the woods. I've heard this. Middle of nowhere, no cars around, but the distinct sound of a metal car thunk getting shut.
Yeah.
Like just the weird stuff like that goes along with Bigfooting and stuff that, or maybe not, just the weird stuff out in the woods that we come across. But
yeah. I think a lot of that is mimicking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The weirdest, if it is mimicking, the weirdest thing I've ever heard out in our research area, we heard a Jeep coming down the trail and literally got off the trail because we're like, okay, they're coming through the Jeep. Got off the trail, nothing ever came. Like it never came up the hill. It just, the sound just dissipated and nothing was on the trail. Like we went down the trail looking for a Jeep and nothing was there. And I'm like, I guess if they hear Jeeps going down this trail enough, they would know how to make the sounds of it. But like you could hear the suspension on this thing. I mean, it was wild.
Have you ever heard, I've had one other guest on the show talk about this as well, but we were up on this property and we heard what sounds like, a cell phone vibrating,
mm-hmm.
but loud enough that it was probably like a half mile away.
Oh, wow.
And it sounds like a plane going over or something, it's just really loud. And it started off, be the east, and it moved from east to west about, like, let's say, like, if you're looking at a clock, it'd be about maybe a mile, half mile arc. And it started over here and you could hear it, and it went across and then it did it again, started at the same part and went across. And it did that 2 or 3 times, not right in a row, but like it went across and then it did it again. Kind of like an ATV or something, but like you would think, like you said, like a Jeep, but it sounded more like the sound of a cell phone vibrating, not an engine running or nothing, but but loud enough that you could hear it over the trees, like a ways away. Cause there was a road out there, but it wasn't a vehicle. It was weird. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Not like that. No, that's wild.
I had one other guest talk about it and he brought it up and said that they heard this like vibrating sound like that. And I'm like, that's what we heard. Weird stuff.
Huh.
So, interesting.
Yeah.
We are live, guys. We are in studio here today. So if you guys have any questions or comments, we are going to be talking more about Bigfoot down in Tennessee in the Cumberland area. So if you have any questions for my guest, throw them in the comments section. We have been talking about the new book, The Tennessee Pygmy, Legend or Reality by Randy here. It just came out this past weekend. The link for that is in the show notes if you want to get a copy of it, as well as his other book, The Bear Mountain Bigfoot, The Case for Sasquatch on the Southern Cumberland Plateau. Tell us about this one.
Okay, sure. There was a big, giant, basically negative, spot on most Bigfoot maps that I've noticed, and it's basically the Southern Cumberland Plateau. Like the BFRO doesn't have hardly anything there. So that's where I've been doing most of my research for the last almost 30 years. So I decided, that these people's stories needed to be heard and needed to be told, and so I decided to write the book. And they all take place in the Cumberland Plateau region of Tennessee.
So these are all kind of like local stories of sightings and stuff.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And my own experiences in the same region doing research.
Very cool. Awesome. The link for that is in the show notes. If you guys are interested in grabbing a copy of that book as well, head on over and check that out. So what I like to ask all my guests that come on here is, what do you think that you know? What have you discovered or think that you've discovered to a relative certain degree about the Bigfoot in nothing? No. What have you seen, or some commonalities or anything about your research in the area? Any kind of like food patterns? Do they come out in a certain area to eat a specific food? Do they move through certain areas at certain times of the year? Are they more active or less active certain times of the year? What have you found that you can kind of put a pin in and say this is probably true?
Well, one of the things I bring up in the book is we've got 5 active areas along this edge of the Cumberland Plateau. Our primary research area is where we kind of found in 2015. And we did 2 years in research area 1, sometimes four days a week, for about 10 to 12 hours up there. It's on the edge of a really popular state park, and so we would go take in these trails to access the area. And like I said, we stayed up there for forever for that first 2 years, and there were some things we noticed in that area that we then went and looked in other areas where we thought, this looks like an area where there should be research or there should be activity. Mm-hmm. And then ended up finding out that there was activity in those areas. And one of the things that tied them all together was seep springs in this region. And seep springs are just where water is seeping up out of the ground, out of a cave, basically. And it's there 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Where during the summer, a lot of places, creeks and streams and stuff will dry up, and these seep springs, those stay there all the time. So we've noticed that they seem to like to hang out, especially in research area 1. They really like to hang out around these seep springs that we've got in this in our area. And I think that's because the water's there, and that water brings in prey. Deer, raccoons, stuff are always coming into that water, so they don't have to go very far to go hunt. They just got to hang around that seep spring, and food comes to them.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, especially like you said, if the other areas dry up, everything needs water. But that's a really good place to start with.
Yeah.
Interesting. So are these big like rivers, or when you tell it's like a spring, how big are you talking?
Some of them are maybe 10 feet by 10 feet wide. When you track, like in our area, we've got 4 seep springs all in the same region, like the same, probably 4 acres right there. And in this one bottom, and one of them looks like it's maybe about as big around as your thigh. And it looks like water just bubbling up out of leaves, but it's the beginning of a major stream that goes into a bigger creek. And it's those little feeders, those little seep springs that feed all these big rivers around this region, coming out of the mountain, coming out of the ground, I should say.
So they're not necessarily a big creek; they're just a small little area of water.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Some of them are tiny. Some of them, like I said, are about 10 foot by 10 foot. It looks like a creek suddenly just coming out of the ground, and you'll be walking and everything will be just the woods, and then suddenly there's this just little beautiful, clear little crystal, creek coming out of nothing. And if you put your hand actually down in the water there, you'll actually feel the pressure of the water coming up out of the ground.
Wow.
So we got a lot of that around this area because of all the karst and cave topography.
Interesting. Do you have a lot of sighting reports, or what are your thoughts of them living in caves?
I think they use caves. I do. One of our, like I was telling you, we have 5 active areas. One of our active areas is an old abandoned quarry, and there are caves. This quarry is about 2 miles off the beaten path, off the road. There's a couple trails that lead to it if you know how to get to it. But aside from that trail, nobody goes up there. And there are caves that are built into the side of the mountain there. And we've actually found tracks back up in those caves where we suspect they're using them as shelters, during certain times of the year.
Interesting. So anything else in them other than the footprints, like animal bones, or like are they eating in there or anything like that?
We found pine trees. We found in one a pine tree that had been pulled back into a corner, and we thought that didn't have any evidence of this, like hair or anything, but we had the suspicion that it was pulled back there to lay on, like a bed, basically, because it was all flattened out and stuff.
Interesting. Have you found any nesting sites?
I have found nesting sites up on Cagle Mountain, which is up on the Cumberland Plateau. Back in 2001, I got called out to a couple's house, an elderly couple's house. And when I got there, they had just gotten home from church. And the gentleman was like, "Let me show you what I found you this morning." And so he walks me back to the edge of his property where there's a big fence row, and there's weeds that have grown all through this fence row. So it's the weeds are probably like 4.5, 5 foot tall, and looks completely like just weeds. And then he steps across, like there's a low part of the fence. He steps across, has me step across, and there's this huge 10 foot by 10 foot wide nest that looks like a gorilla nest that is woven in all these weeds and grass on the other side of this fence. You can literally sit down in this thing, look up at their house, and you could not see into this thing from the house at all. You could sit there and just at your leisure, just sit in this thing and watch the house, and they would never know you were there. It was wild. It was this big, blind nest just sitting there within eyes reach of the house.
Interesting. So what was it made of? Just the woven grass in that area, or was there pine brought in? Or
no, it was just the woven grass of the area, all the weeds and stuff. And interestingly enough, there was a polk. I don't know if you guys had polk up in Wisconsin.
I don't know.
But we have these big purple plants called polk plants, and they make these big black berries, and they're poisonous for humans to eat. But like deer and stuff will eat them. There was a big polk plant that was next to this nest, and half of it had been bent over into this nest. And on this one strand, all of the berries were missing, as if it had just sit here and like casually picked these pokeberries off this plant, and they ate them. And I spoke with a game warden a couple of months after this, and I'm like, what would you make of that? And he's like, mostly the animals that eat those pokeberries are nocturnal animals. And he said, I've always been told it's because, and I don't remember off the top of my head what he said was in the berries, but he said it aids with nocturnal vision. And that was the reason that the deer and stuff like to eat it. And so I just, found that interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you don't think do you have bear down in the area? Do you think like this could have been a bear nest?
Yeah, black bear, but this was definitely, this looked literally like, I've looked at gorilla nests online. This looked just like one of those where it was woven, where something had laid in there and had woven these weeds together. It was weird. It wasn't just like laid down and flat and stuff.
So something had to have hands to manipulate it to build it.
I think so, yeah.
Interesting. Do you get a lot of we talk a lot about the stick structures and stuff that are associated with these creatures and that. Do you get a lot of stone piles? Because up here in Wisconsin, you don't find a lot of stones in the woods, not that much. At least where we've gone in that. But when we were down in Kentucky and Tennessee, one of the things that we were told in that is that there's a lot of stone stackings and stuff down there, and we were showed a few. Do you have a lot of that by you?
I have not had any stone stacking that I've been involved with myself, but I have had people that have activity on their properties that say that they've had stone stacking on their property. So,
what do you think of the whole Sasquatch and autism kind of thing? Like the stone stacking or the sorting of items. Like people will say like they'll put out gifting things and only like the blue stuff will disappear, or like if they put out a bunch of different colored things, they'll be sorted into different groups and stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not really sure. I think that if you had you have a species living out there like this in the wild, that traits like that probably would become dominant pretty fast. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did have traits like something like autism, that they can let them hone in on things like that and specialize. We've mostly gifted fruit at our sites. We gift a lot of fruit, especially peaches. They love the ones in our area love peaches. We've actually sat peaches down in our gifting area. Went down to about a quarter mile to a half mile farther down the trail where we knock, and we get a lot of knocking responses. And so we've left the fruit, went down there and knocked, come back, and the fruit be gone. Like they don't wait on that stuff. And then one time we had someone come to us with a big giant box of mangoes, and they're like, "We know you guys like to take your friends' fruit, take them out these mangoes." So we took these mangoes out there. And what was weird was about 2 weeks go by, and this is when we're up there like 4 days a week. We brought oranges, we brought apples, we brought peaches. We go up there one day, go to the same trees where we leave all the gifting stuff, and there is one single mango left on the tree where we leave the fruit, and we took that as please give us more mangoes. But it was 2 weeks later, and this was in the summer, so I was perplexed as to how in the world that mango survived for 2 weeks in a Tennessee summer. And my wife suggested, she's like, "Honey, they have to have a cave nearby that they're storing that stuff in, or else, how else would it have lasted as long as it did?" So
that's an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that park up there that our most active area is next to is actually the second most cave-ridden park in the eastern United States. So wouldn't be surprised me if they've got a cave back there that they're using.
You have a friend here, Roger, says, Randy, this is Roger Williams. Have you had any success with oranges? Everything gets taken here except oranges.
We have had the exact same thing happen. They will not take citrus fruit. I don't know why. We've left lemons, we've left oranges, we've left grapefruit. They will not touch citrus fruit for whatever reason, but like Roger's talking about, everything else they've taken too readily.
I have heard a theory that if you leave food out, that they won't take it unless it's something they already know. So like if there's apple trees in the area, they'll take apples because they know what it is. So if you guys don't have citrus fruits or mango trees or, whatever it is that you're gifting out there, they might not know what this is or be a little more
cautionary.
Yeah, to taking it. You know what I mean? They don't, if you don't, like you said, the berries are poisonous to humans. So if they don't know, like if they don't see other animals eating it or something and know what it is, they might not have that association that's edible.
Yeah. It's one thing we always did when we go up there to gift fruit. We always bring enough fruit that we can eat some ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we always eat it there next to where we're putting it as a sign of like, look, this is good. It's not going to hurt you. But they still won't take oranges or citrus fruit for whatever reason.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
If anybody in the comments section has done some gifting, throw some comments in there if you guys have had any experience with gifting any kind of citrus. Have they taken it by you? I wonder if this is regional or just kind of in general.
I'm not sure. I've never really looked into it, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard like we hear a lot of like peanut butter, apples, stuff like that. But yeah, oh yeah, exactly. Roger says we need to ask some of the skunk ape people that same question. You know, down in Florida, they have those things just growing and stuff.
Yeah,
so
that'd be a good idea.
Even in California, Mike Prine says rumor is they don't like oranges. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, if you got any other comments on citrus fruits, throw them in the comment section. We'd be interested to hear that. Octopus with No Friends says mangoes are the greatest. Is that your opinion, or have you had experience gifting them to Sasquatch or the creatures of the woods? That's interesting. The other thing that you mentioned there is, you know, the mango had stayed there, right? Now, one,
well, it got placed there. It hadn't stayed there for 2 weeks. I might have got confused, or might have been confusing and went the way I said it. We went there to gift more fruit, and there was a single solitary mango suddenly, you know, on the tree where we leave fruit. So it had been brought back and put there on the tree.
Okay, that's kind of what I was taking it originally, but yeah. Okay, yeah, we're on the same page. Gotcha. But my point is you have this mango left there, and nothing else ate it. Not squirrels, raccoons, possums, whatever you got down there. No natural other creatures. And this is very interesting because on places where we had gifting for Bigfoot and stuff, we'd leave apples, and those apples would stay there for a week. They wouldn't rot, you know, nothing. And then all of a sudden they'd all be gone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, you could watch them on trail camera. They'd sit there. And then all of a sudden, they all just disappear, smacking things around. Here we go. Roger says Mark Green had a watermelon brought back the same way, and it wasn't rotten.
Yeah, so they're storing these things, man. They have to be.
Interesting. Watermelons are not a citrus fruit, so just, you know, in case you're wondering. Well, no, that's a very interesting question. I'm gonna have to bring that up with some other guests. I'll have to see if I can find some skunk ape people and see if we can
definitely
get that on here.
That'd be interesting to see what they say.
Skunk ape. Talk amongst yourselves for a second.
I've never tried any of the really weird exotic fruits, you know, like those weird star-shaped, you know, talking about like the spiky star-shaped stuff. I've never tried any of those, so I'm not sure if they take those or not.
Interesting.
Might have to do that at the camp out.
Yeah, we never did oranges. We did apples. I think we left bananas. I don't know. We left quite a bit of stuff out there in different occasions and stuff, but I don't think we ever did oranges. Not that I remember. Octopus with No Friends would like to know, do we think that Bigfoot are just extinct?
Extinct.
Gigantopithecus.
I don't know. I don't think they are. With the reactions that we've had and the interactions we've had, I think personally, and the juvenile that I saw, I had an encounter where I saw a juvenile hiding under a root ball of a tree back in 2017. And when I first saw it, it looked like a hole, and I thought that I was walking up on a freaking coyote den, because coyotes love to get up under root balls like that. Mm-hmm. And as I was staring at this hole, the hole shifted. And when it shifted, you could tell, I mean, like it put its head down on its chin down to its chest and pushed back in this root ball like it was trying to hide. And it was a child, it was juvenile. And when I say child, it didn't look like a monkey. It didn't look like a juvenile gorilla. It looked like a freaking black-skinned, black-haired kid. And that really messed with me. It still messes with me to this day. I broke down when I got home that day because it was just like, I wasn't expecting to see a kid out there. But I think I think like the Native Americans, I think there's some sort of human. I think there's some sort of maybe a human cousin where humans are like, Homo sapien and Homo neanderthalis and Homo denisovan and all of these homos, that are all combined. I think maybe they're the same way, just maybe with a different recipe. You know what I mean? Like they've got different proportions than we do. Maybe I'm not sure, but like I think there's some kind of human or some kind of people. I don't think they're Gigantopithecus at all.
So interesting comment here. Octopus says, "Oh my, Barnaby, more evidence for dark hair, light absorbing hair. You said it looked like a hole."
It did. It was so dark that initially I was like, "That's a hole." Like not a question in my mind. That's a hole. And as I was like, I was holding mountain laurel with one hand, and I'm staring at this root ball, and as I'm staring at it, and it moved. Like that's when I could make definition of it. To this day, I don't know why I couldn't make definition of it other than like maybe what he's talking about, that the hair absorbs light in some fashion. I don't know, but it was the darkest natural thing I have ever seen.
Interesting. And that leads more into, you hear the stories of people saying that these shadow entities or something are darker than dark when they move through the woods. So that maybe these things aren't shadow beings. Maybe they're just these creatures moving there.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Interesting. Darker than black. Yeah. Shifting gears a little bit, when you're talking about being more in the southern states, and well, not so much southern, but the southern part of the United States and stuff, a lot of the stories that we get out of this area claim that these things are more aggressive. Have you had more aggressive stories or more aggressive behavior down in the area?
I've been screamed at several times. I've had rocks thrown at me. I don't even know how many times in this one area. But in my book, I actually bring up in the 1960s, we got a story from an area called Hills Creek. And Hills Creek is basically a giant spring that pumps out, I think it's 22,000 gallons an hour. It pumps it out huge. But there was some a family was riding horses up above this spring back in, I think it was 1969. And it was a sister, her brother, and the brother's girlfriend at the time, which ended up becoming his wife later on. But they were riding horses up a hill, and the whole family says that out of nowhere, this hairy monkey-like thing comes crashing out of the tree above the sister, lands on her and the horse with such force that the horse fell to the ground, and starts pummeling her with closed fists. And by the time the guy says by the time he got his horse turned around, and him and his girlfriend, this thing had jumped off of her and runs into the woods. But that's one of the most aggressive ones in this area I've taken.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact to take down a horse. I mean, you're talking
the weight you would have to be to take down a horse like that is crazy.
You're talking about a full-grown horse that she's riding through the woods there.
Yeah.
Jesus. Wow.
Yeah, it messed her up so badly that her nephew told us that to this day, and she's in her 60s now, to this day, she will not go out on those trails. She will not horseback out on those trails anymore. And that was like one of her big things, that they said back when she was younger, was always horse riding back up in there in that region. And she won't do any of it now.
I can imagine why. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, think about the other side of this. Something that big to take down a horse was up in a tree.
Yeah. I think these things go up in trees a lot. I really do.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people believe, you know, the juveniles and stuff go up in trees, but here you got obviously a full grown large one to take down a horse and the lady up in a tree.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not talking about like a ridge line or something. Like this thing came out of a tree, right? Not off of like a cliff or anything.
No,
else.
it came out of the tree, they said. Yeah.
Huh. That's impressive because, you know, to try and think about, you know, the size of these things and the amount of weight that they got to be up in these trees.
Mm.
And
well, I spoke to one gentleman who said that they had a sighting at about 20 yards, and it was going behind a tree when they saw it. Like, it was very quick. But he said, him and his girlfriend both said that when they got up to that tree, they looked up, and he swears that about, you know, 30 yards up, which would be about 90 feet, you could see this thing. And even though it was dark, you could see this thing up there with its arms around this tree, where it had climbed this tree and was holding on. So I think grown ones go up in trees a lot more than people think they do, and that may be how they disappear. You know, where they talk about they just 1 minute it's there, 1 minute it's not. Well, if it goes behind a tree and disappears, I suspect it probably went up that tree, and you just don't realize it.
Well, you would think that if it went up the tree, you would see the tree shaking. You know, like you'd notice that all the trees are still in that area, but this other one's just kind of like going like this as something's climbing up it. You know,
and you think you hear at least the bark ripping and stuff with something of that kind of weight. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of, you know, the roadside crossings and stuff that people say they are driving along and this thing just disappeared right into the woods. I think a lot of that is it drops down to their bellies.
Yep. I think they do that a lot more than people think they do too. My one of my really close researcher buddies that does our research area with us, when was it? August 12th, 2017. It was about 11 o'clock at night. We were actually out and we got eye shine, and we tracked it with these. We had 3,000 lume lamps on us. I mean, we just flooded the woods, turned it into daylight, and you could see between these two trees this thing coming up and peeking at us. And my buddy was like, "Let me go. Let me see how close I can get." And so we let him go. And he says that when he got back there in the woods, we couldn't see him when he got back there. And we yell at him. We're like, you know, can you see it? And he said, "Oh yeah, I see her." And he said her specifically. He said, "I see her. I'm right up on her." And he said that she was on her hands and feet and was spider crawling backwards from him as he got close to her. And said that it locked eyes with him. And he said it locked eyes to the degree that it never took its eyes off of him. And it still managed to crawl backwards under a log before standing up, like without ever taking its eyes off it, which that level of like knowing your surroundings is insane. To be able to not only just to crawl backwards, but to spider crawl backwards on your hands and feet. It's just, you know, crazy.
That kind of goes with this comment here. Octopus with No Friends says the one that roared at him, they lit up with flashlights and still could only see the eye shine from about 25 feet away.
Oh, wow.
We had one on thermal. I was telling you about the Burlington Woods and stuff before we went on air here. And the one that we got on thermal there, you can see a tree and then you can see the whole head, the shoulder, arm, and then a leg, like half the whole body sticking out from the tree. And we've gone back and tried to figure out where this was. It was about 10 feet away from us. And with all the foliage and stuff, we couldn't see it at all.
Oh, wow.
Like we were shining flashlights on this thing. You couldn't see it at all, but you could pick it up on the thermal and see it going like coming in and out from behind the tree looking at us. That's why like you'd see it on thermal. And this was before I had video thermal, so I just have the picture of it. Mm-hmm. But again, couldn't see it at all with your eyes, but you could see it moving on the thermal, and it's just, yeah, I don't know.
And you were within 10 feet of it?
Yeah, the tree. We went back and looked at this tree and figured out exactly where it was based on, because we record everything. GoPros and night vision stuff. So we knew exactly where this tree was, and we went in and looked in the daylight, because this was at night, and we went in and looked during the daylight, and this tree was like 10 feet away from us where this creature had been standing.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah. So, but again, couldn't see it with your eyes, but thermal picked it up. So
that's wild.
I don't know. I like this comment. They're enormous hairy ninjas.
My buddy who saw it, Spider Walk, that's what he calls them all the time. He calls them wood ninjas. Yeah.
I don't know. There's some comments and stuff about like the woo and the paranormal and stuff like that too. But I don't know if you're familiar with Matt Pruitt.
I've heard the name.
Okay. He's got a book, and the name of the book, I'm trying to think of it, escapes me, but he's been on the show here before. He has a phenomenal book about Sasquatch and the origins and the way we think about them and stuff like that. And he talks about these things as ambush predators.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that these things are so stealthy because they are a predator. So when we say that they disappear into nothing, they don't. Like they walk off the road, they drop down to their bellies and crawl away. So you're looking like this for them, and they're right underneath you, or they'll just sit there. Like there was stories of these things. You see it off in the woods, and then it disappeared, and you research the area and come back and look, and it must have like walked off like 50 feet and then just sat. And watched you the whole time that you were there, and you thought that this thing took off into the woods. But if it takes off, you're going to hear it. Well, I never heard it leave. That's because it didn't. It's literally just walked off 50 feet where you didn't know where it was, and then hunkered down, and like you said, they know their area so much better than we do.
Yes, they do.
And they know every little hole and holler and stuff back there that they can hide in that you don't know is there. And they can watch you the whole time. So,
yep, I agree.
Yeah. I 100% believe there's things out there that are weird and bizarre and, the paranormal and the woo. But not necessarily always has to be tied to Bigfoot. It could be Bigfoot. And there's a lot of weird things that I've experienced with Bigfooting. But I don't know. It's definitely interesting. We are almost here at the end of the show here, coming up on it. So if you guys have any questions or comments for Randy, throw them in the comments section, and we will get to them before we wrap this up. You can create. Okay. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments section. We will get to them. But Randy, you got 2 books here. Your first one, Bear Mountain Bigfoot, The Case for Sasquatch on the Cumberland Plateau, is available on Amazon.com. Links in the show notes, and as well as your brand new book, Tennessee Pygmy, Legend or Reality, again, is out now since last Thursday when we last spoke on the
it came out the day after. I wasn't sure it was going to be when it was going to come out, so I didn't bring it up last time. But
no, absolutely. But both these books are in the show notes. And if you're interested in more of the woo and the paranormal, and you missed it, Randy was on my show last Thursday, The Paranormal Spectrum, where we discuss all of that as well. So awesome stuff there. Yeah. They're so smooth. They're so smooth and adept at hiding. It's their biggest survival attribute. We're no match for their hide and seek.
No, we're not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's what I feel like a lot of people, and I may be wrong on this, but I feel like a lot of researchers, this is going to put a big target on my back. Where they get into they go into this, with it being a flesh and blood animal that they're trying to find. And then they turn into, what's obviously quantum physics, and they're interdimensional. I think a lot of that is just because people get so distraught and kind of down because you don't get answers to this after years and years and years of looking into this. And they're so like Octopus with No Friends is talking about, these things are so hard to find unless they want you to know they're there. You're not going to know it. Most of the time, at least. And I think that just that really wears on people over time. And because they want to have answers to things, well, it's obviously quantum physics and interdimensional, and when in reality, we're not suited to track these things. Like biologically, we're not made to keep up with these things in the woods.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I think a lot of that too is, and the other side of that is when you do get into this woo and stuff, you think about, like all the stuff that supposedly humans can do, the telepathy, telekinesis, mediums, psychics, you talk about the monks, and the Yetis, the Himalayan monks and all that stuff, where you get into this metaphysical and all that stuff. Well, if people can do it, and there's research that says that we can do it, and we're so hyped up on fluoride in the water and, plastics and all the processed foods and stuff like that. Well, these things are natural, right?
Yes.
They're out in the woods 24/7, communing with nature. You gotta think that they're just natural abilities. They're mental, they're metaphysical beings. Their chakras gotta be a lot better aligned, a lot more in tune than we are. So who's to say, this mind speaking stuff, who's to say that they can't do that? We know people that have that ability, like just think about, like, if you're sitting at home and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I'm thinking about Randy. He should give me a call. And then all of a sudden the phone rings and it's you, right?
Yeah.
Like we have that ability, these connections sometimes with close friends that we're with. And if we can have these abilities at whatever the heck's going on with our bodies and the food that we eat and put in it and all that stuff, and getting into the paranormal spectrum side of this show. But if we can do all that, why can't the other side, these, creatures of the woods, have these same abilities?
Yes. Yes, I agree completely. I mean, we as a society, we stunt that from us. Starting as children, we tell them that's not real. That's not true. So if you've got kids that are gifted with things like that, they're being told it's not even nothing to even worry about. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I really do. I agree with you completely. I think that these things probably have. I'm like I've told some people, I'm a flesh and blooder who believes that these things have superpowers. Mm-hmm. I don't mean like that, like the Avengers style superpowers, but like when it comes to like telepathy and telekinesis. Well, I don't know about telekinesis.
Yeah,
but, that'd be wild.
Yeah,
that's how they're throwing their boulders.
Yeah, it just lifts us orange. No, absolutely. Yeah. I think so. And then like I said, the whole government, you can go and look up, the disclosure and stuff of all the stuff that they've done, the men who stare at goats and all these things that they've proved are real. And the reason you don't hear about it is because they can't use it in military terms.
Yep.
The whole remote viewing, telepathy, all that stuff. They say, it's just not reliable enough for actionable outcomes. Means we can target a place and bomb it based on this information, so it's not good enough for us.
They don't dispute that it's not real. They just dispute that they can't use it the way they want to use it.
Yep. I have somewhere in the pile of stuff here, I have the whole disclosure on that stuff of remote viewing and all that says, this is all real, but we can't do it, or we can't use it, so it's no use to us. And people just don't realize that this stuff is out there, that science is a lot weirder than people think. And now the whole multi-dimensions and all that stuff, and the fact that this other dimension is watching us, that they found out. Have you read that recently?
I've not, no. Are we a TV show?
It was something out of CERN that they found that there's another dimension, and the dimension is aware that we're observing it.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Fantastical stories and stuff that are out there that, people think like, it's just, sci-fi television, TV show stuff.
I mean, we live in a sci-fi world. There's robots
a little deeper
around now.
Dig a little deeper into some of this stuff, man. But, oh yeah, absolutely. The world is a lot weirder than we think it is. So.
Yes, it is.
Awesome, man. Well, it's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure having you on for Thursday, talking all the weird stuff, and we've kind of got a little weird here at the end here too. But talking the pygmies and Bigfoot, absolutely wonderful having you on here. Octopus said that I have the best guests. I don't know where that.
Thank you for having me on, Barbie.
There we go. Has the best guests. There you go. So
thank you.
Awesome. But yeah, absolutely. Is there any final thought that you want to leave people on about the pygmies, the world in general, Bigfoot? What do you got to leave everybody? Final thoughts here.
Oh man, I'm horrible with final thoughts. No, I don't got nothing, man.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I'm sorry if I kind of missed any questions here. It looked like you was just commenting on stuff that we were saying. So I think we're all caught up on that. But
Oh, I did find out. Last time we talked about thunderbirds. And I found out the name of those two thunderbirds.
Oh, yes.
Were, in that region. They were Utana and Uzdi. And basically Utana means big and Uzdi means little. So it was big and little thunderbirds. Or Tulanawa, I should say, is what the Cherokee word is for.
And you couldn't remember those names? Like they weren't on the tip of your tongue?
I had to look. Yeah, right.
Jeez, I'm disappointed. You could. Oh, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for remembering that. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So definitely, if you guys, like I said, if you guys did not check out Thursday's episode of the Paranormal Spectrum with Randy, go check that out as well. It's a really good episode there. So check that out. But saying we live in the we live in the boring part of a sci-fi novel. Okay.
That's why we go look for this stuff, so it's not boring.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, again, Randy's got 2 books out, Bear Mountain Bigfoot, and also the brand new book, Tennessee Pygmy. So if you are looking for these, the links are in the show notes, as well as your Tennessee Facebook page for all of the weird and creepy fun stuff over there. You guys can go check that out. It's in the show notes. And your YouTube channel, 40 in Tennessee. There we go. 40 in Tennessee. On Facebook and YouTube. The links are in the show notes, as well as the link to the Tennessee Cryptid Campout. Do you want to leave us on that? What do you got going on with that?
Oh yeah, sure. We sold out on that, but we're talking about already having one for the next year. So if people were still interested, but it's we've created a dream team of researchers: Ronnie LeBlanc, Hellbent Holler, Jesse and Joe Doyle, Chester Moore from Dark Outdoors. But we're having we're dropping 40 people into our active research area with these researchers and all the awesome tech and stuff, and spending 4 days and 4 nights basically looking for Bigfoot in our most active research area.
That sounds awesome.
Should be fun.
And you do a convention as well down there?
Yes, the Tennessee Wildman and Cryptid Con, Tennessee Wildman Convention. That's in August. The next one will be August 15th of 2026.
Very cool. And where can people get more information on that?
Facebook would be the easiest place.
Facebook.
Just look up Tennessee Wildman and Cryptid Con on Facebook.
Very cool. All right, man. Keep that in mind coming up in August here, so we can start planning ahead, and everyone can get tickets to that and go check that out if you're anywhere in Kentucky, Tennessee, what else? Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama.
We had people come down from New
Florida,
Jersey last year.
California, Wisconsin, all the surrounding states in the United States. There you go.
There you go.
Awesome, man. Well, you're a wonderful guest. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. Next time you got another book or anything else comes out, feel free to reach out. And love to have you back and chat again.
Will do, man. Will do. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. You take care. Go ride your bike. Nice warm weather that you're having down there.
Right. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Take care, man. All right, guys, that is our show for this week. It is about 30 some degrees here in Wisconsin, so I had to throw that in at the end. But that is all for our show this week. Remember to go check out the show notes and check out all of Randy's links there if you're interested in more about the 40 in Kentucky, 40 in Tennessee, that area of Appalachia. All kinds of fun stuff in there, as well as his 2 books are in the show notes for you guys to check out, and the YouTube channel. While you're online, make sure that you subscribe, and share all things here on the Untold Radio Network on your chosen platform, whether it be YouTube or if you're listening to this on a podcast platform. We really appreciate it. There are more shows just like mine, so check them out as well. And make sure you check out all of my work with cryptids, anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. We got a new episode dropping very soon about the mound builders, all kinds of stuff from Aztalan State Park, Cahokia Mounds, effigy mounds, and more coming up really soon. It is going to be out on our Patreon page, Wisconsin Caps on Patreon, and it'll be available on YouTube shortly after that. And then we have another one coming out at the end of the year as well. So all kinds of stuff coming out from us. So until next time, guys, I'll see you on the edge.